Hey man, check it out. Looks like Art Spiegelman's coming to town and signing his new book, Mouse. I knew him 20 years ago when he was in San Francisco working on underground comics.
I remember Undergrounds in the 70s, but what's he been doing lately?
He edits this magazine called Raw now in New York. I don't know what all he's been up to. I do know a guy, though, who likes Spiegelman's stuff. He's a real avid collector. Maybe we ought to go see him before the signing. What do you say?
Hey, let's go.
We're here to do an interview with a gentleman we can only refer to as Mr. X. He's got a world-class Art Spiegelman collection, and he's agreed to talk to us about Art Spiegelman's work, but only under the condition that we keep his identity a secret.
This breakdown's a collection of early underground strips. The title, of course, refers both to his mental state and to the fact that he's broken down the illustration here into its component colors. Whole Grains, this is a book of quotations for an outfit called Douglas Books in New York City. He did some illustrations for. Here's a promotional comic Spiegelman edited. Here's a cute little item. Hot Nuts, a collection of Do You Wanna Bible. Back in the early 70s, Spiegelman and a number of his cartoonist friends did a number of illustrations for this. A postcard Spiegelman did for a cartoonist co-op press in San Francisco. A flyer for Memory Shop West. Short Order, lasted all of 2 issues. Here's an item, Funny Aminals. First incarnation of Mouse. Sleazy Scandals. Bijou Funnies. One of the first undergrounds out of Chicago. 4 sketchbooks and a table of useful information. And just that. And Arcade. Not too many people know that Spiegelman was very involved with the production of Topps bubblegum cards. How about this? You seen this before? It's a condom he did, a little outfit in France.
Wait a minute, there's too much stuff. Let's slow down and look at it. Isn't that an Art Spiegelman t-shirt you're wearing?
Yeah. It's a little number called the Viper. Let's see. One of his continuing characters.
There was only one place, Looking Glass Bookstore on Southwest Taylor. Bill Closter carried underground comics from the very beginning, and he used to even wholesale the first few issues of Raw through Tree Frog Trucking Company. Naturally, this was the place that Spiegelman scheduled to sign his new book. Well, how did you arrange for this personal appearance, this exclusive personal appearance of Art Spiegelman in Looking Glass Bookstore?
We fought like hell. No, actually, I think that we were first in line to ask, and the sales rep for Random House said that was fine, and we ordered a lot of books, which always helps as well.
Makes a difference, huh?
Yeah. Well, I think Mouse is really the high point of his career.
You think it takes comics a step further?
I think it allows people to call comics books, and thereby they can read it. He's really crossed that line that America's always had between comics and literature, and this is considered literature by the critics and thereby by America as a whole. I think there's always been adults that read comics, and it really isn't a comic for adults.
Mouse is not a typical cat and mouse cartoon story. It's about his father's experiences in Nazi concentration camps during World War II. Originally, it was begun in the underground comic book Funny Aminals, but Mouse was continued in several issues of Raw magazine before Spiegelman collected it into the 2-volume set. This story appeals to a wide range of readers, from comic fans to Holocaust historians. It's an interesting hybrid of high drama and low cartoon comedy. Spiegelman drew a good crowd, that's for sure. Dozens of people lined up to talk to him and get his signature. He signed several hundred books in an hour and a half and drew cartoons as well on most of them.
I used a simple graphic style and masked off faces in order to make it more real. Because, like, by example, I would say that, like, Little Orphan Annie with the blank drawing style and with, like, a kind of totemic figure is actually much more chillingly emotional than something like Little Abner, which is, like, very telegraphed, overly delivered stuff.
Even a brief look at Mouse answers the obvious question, where did the artist get his ideas? But not every city on the Mouse tour was prepared for Spiegelman. A radio interview in Denver bordered on the bizarre.
I guess he was talking English, but like every word had a different meaning than the one I knew English to have. And so as a result, I couldn't even begin. I needed a decoder ring, and I didn't have it. So like, he had never read the book. The only sentence I understood, and I don't know quite what he meant by that, was, and after a word from Dr. Scholl's foot powder, we'll be back with Mr. Spiegelman to discuss Pearl Harbor. And it was like a wild hour. And one person called up and said, there were 4 calls, each one, I don't know, maybe it's just Denver or that particular day or the ozone layer or something, but every question was weirder than the last, you know? And none of them had anything to do with the book, but they're just like, one was like, what do you think of personal stuff? It's pretty good, what do you think?
Some of Spiegelman's earliest artwork in the counterculture press appeared in 2 New York City tabloids, the East Village Other and the Gothic Blimpworks. Later, he joined the cartoonist exodus to San Francisco, where he contributed to many underground comic books, including Bijou, Snarf, and his own book, Short Order Comics. As the underground comics movement wound down in the mid-1970s, Spiegelman and Bill Griffith, the creator of Zippy the Pinhead, joined forces to produce Arcade magazine. It was an ambitious attempt to take cartoon stories into a new arena, but it ultimately became more work than they could handle. Spiegelman's next publishing venture was Raw, a large format art magazine that allowed him to experiment with unusual graphic design and dazzling color work. During his years in the underground, he was also a cartoon contributor for several men's magazines, where he often worked under a pseudonym. He chose the name Duchamp for an early piece in Gallery, inspired by a nude descending from a staircase. You've often been both an editor and a contributor to your own publications. Mm-hmm. 2 jobs.
Well, and designer, that's 3, and then book packer, that's 4, and then assistant printer, that's 5. Can I get some notion of how many I signed? Do you have any idea?
I'd say, of all the books, of all the different books, probably close to 150 to 200.
Wow.
How did
That was
you
a lot
get
in an hour and a half.
A lot of people brought books in with them.
Yeah.
So you sold 150 or so, and then
I'd say between 150 and 200.
and then I definitely signed things from other people.
Oh,
so
I'd say
many
must have been
kinds of
signed.
things.
You might have signed 400.
Wow.
I hope you realize how important this bookstore is.
And then he was gone, off into the night to catch a flight to Seattle, the next stop on his whirlwind book tour. Come back to Portland again sometime, Art. You can smoke cigarettes. We'll drink some beers, check into some used bookstores, have a good time.
Bye.
We're already looking forward to it. Do you feel differently about your work now than when you were doing Arcade or East Village Other or any of your early work?
I feel a little bit more sure of myself. You know, like I've developed a certain degree of, I know that if I set myself a task, a drawing assignment, I can, one way or another, even if it takes a lot of redrawing, get there.
Are you faster?
No, actually I'm probably slower, but at least I know I can get the result I'm after.
Were you angrier then?
I probably was more depressed then.